A warm welcome to today's edition of Money Moves. I am Melissa Enoch here at the FMDQ studios in Lagos.
I am Grace Aguarago. It's Tuesday, the 2nd of December. We thank you for joining us at this time on the show.
All right, let's begin with your news now. The three key promoters of the new PAPS Cowrie, the African Export-Import Bank, the AFCFTA Secretariat, and the Pan-African Payment and Settlement System today formally introduced the new sovereign and interoperable African payment ecosystem in Lagos. The new payment system built for trade and economic growth was showcased at the Nigerian banking, finance, and tech infrastructure industry as PAPS looks to collaborations that will drive the new innovation that is cheaper, faster, and more inclusive for Africa. Let's take excerpts from some of the keynote presentations.
We've created this Pan-African payment rail that today has connected about 19 countries, and we're looking forward to expanding this to about 40. Okay, and today has 160 commercial banks that are connected on this platform. And these are 160 of the leading and the best commercial banks across the continent. Now, what we have now done is working with these partners. We're also now enabling fintechs and tech companies across the continent to be able to originate payment in one market and terminate it in the other market. So PAPS is that financial market infrastructure that allows for the processing of cross-border payments in local currencies, and it's able to do that in no more than 120 seconds. So from the origination of a transaction to the termination of that transaction, it takes a maximum of 120 seconds. And in between, we do all of the AML, the sanction screening, and the fraud management.
Afreximbank is a treaty-based Pan-African institution owned by 54 member countries, anchored on a $45 billion balance sheet and covering the trade risk of more than 300 African banks. We was created for one mission: to enable, expand, and transfer Africa trade. We believe the Africa we want will only be achieved through the Africa we trade. And for Africa to trade confidently, trade must be efficient, interconnected, and digital. Yet African business still face real barriers. Cross-border payments remain slow, expensive, impossible sometimes, and nearly $5 billion is lost every year to third currency routing. SMEs struggle to find trusted partners, affordable finance, and market information. Banks face liquidity pressures, FX pressure, and elevated risk premium.
We are extremely proud to be a promoter of PAPS. We fully support the vision, the executive team that is implementing this vision, and at any moment, PAPS can count on us for political support. In our continent, different institutions have different roles. Afreximbank, as EVP, has clearly articulated the role of Afreximbank. Mike set out the role of PAPS. The AFCFTA Secretariat, our role is to ensure that we implement the rules that create a single market, that enable us as Africans to trade without barriers, to eliminate barriers to intra-Africa trade, and to realize the benefits of a market of 1.4 billion people with a combined GDP of $3.4 trillion. However, as has been stated, this dream of creating a single market shall remain nothing but a dream if we don't introduce the tools that will enable us to overcome the fragmentation that has existed for many, many decades.
In its latest CEO Climate Leaders Report, the World Economic Forum highlights how strategic investment in decarbonization and resilience can drive sustainability and long-term growth. The global green economy has surpassed $5 trillion and is expected to exceed $7 trillion annually by 2030, presenting major opportunities for businesses worldwide. Green revenues are growing twice as fast as conventional revenues, with companies in green markets often benefiting from cheaper capital and valuation premiums. Mature technologies like solar, wind, batteries, and electric vehicles are cost competitive globally, which high-cost solutions such as low-carbon hydrogen and carbon capture need strong support to lower costs. In Egypt, the Financial Regulatory Authority has launched its first unified guide to all FRA services, aiming to simplify the business environment for companies and individuals in the non-banking financial sector. The guide supports the FRA's transformation efforts, enhancing work system efficiency and aligning with its goal to improve transparency, streamline procedures, and provide open access to information. The move is seen as a key step in modernizing Egypt's non-banking financial sector and making it more investor-friendly. In Uganda, stakeholders have gathered to assess the Uganda MSME Policy 2015 and the National Standards and Quality Policy 2012, with a focus on co-designing more inclusive, demand-driven frameworks to support the country's tenfold growth transformation agenda. The discussions aim to align policy with current economic realities, strengthen competitiveness, and better support small businesses as engines of job creation and national development. Here are excerpts.
We know Uganda's economy is largely driven by the private sector. That's very true. We can't dispute that. And additionally, we're all aware that Uganda's private sector is largely driven. The engine of Uganda's private sector are MSMEs, micro, small, and medium enterprises. And one of the key critical paths that every MSME wants to leverage on is the power of standards. So that's why, as a country, we are so keen on building a sustainable and inclusive national quality infrastructure. That's why the two policies, the MSME policy of 2015, which is due for review, the 2012 policy for national standards and quality, which was due in 2022. This is the time that we really want to reflect on how do we turn this round, because so much has happened in the last 10 years. When we launched the 2015 policy for MSMEs, we were talking about the MDGs, Millennium Development Goals. Now we are finalizing the SDGs, Sustainable Development Goals. In 2030, we don't know which other global agenda is going to be thought of. But I think we just want to be forward-looking to make sure that these policies are going to be designed to also be forward-looking and to really meet the dynamic issues at hand.
In other news, RwandAir has resumed direct flights to Mombasa, returning to Kenya's coastal city for the first time since 2019. The relaunch at MOI International Airport marks a boost for regional connectivity, tourism, and trade across East Africa. RwandAir Chief Commercial Officer Food Kanye described the occasion as a significant milestone for the airline and the region. In Botswana, the Botswana Stock Exchange and Vunani fund managers held an opening bell ceremony to mark the listing of the Vunani Global Equity Prescient Feeder Actively Managed ETF. The event brought together leaders from Vunani Group, NBFIRA BW, Motswedi Securities, pension funds, asset managers, government representatives, and other market participants. BSE Head of Product Development, Kopano Bolokwe, said the new ETF deepens Botswana's ETF market, providing local investors access to global equities and supporting diversification under the BSE's 10x by 2030 strategy. Finally, on News Now, at the African Securities Exchanges Association Conference in Kigali, one of the key panel sessions focused on building a resilient African capital market, examining how the continent can adapt to growing geopolitical risks and the realities of today's global economic wars. Let's take excerpts.
If you look at the Gen Z, these are basically guys who've just gotten into employment, a low of 28 years. So if you look at this generation, they are more driven to what is already said, products which are captured on the mobile technology.
Yes.
And then if you look again, this generation, they are a generation which is so wired towards spending more than saving. So one of the big challenges, which I think many of our institutions in Kenya have done, for example, Safaricom and even ourselves, we've launched a product called Save As You Spend. So you then tap some element of savings as this generation keeps on spending. And it's working out so well. If you look at the amount of money they're able to save in a month, would ordinarily be even more than what they would have ordinarily given us their contribution.
That's very innovative.
Yeah. So there has to be an element of innovation for us to attract them. Innovation at the point of sign-in. For example, the onboarding process, again, needs to be part of the mobile process where you encourage them either through a USSD code where they can join a pension scheme, they can start contributing, and then basically that kind of a lifestyle.
So that is voluntary contribution?
Voluntary, yes. And many of them, if you look at this young generation again, they are guys who don't stick in one employment. They perhaps different from many of us who believe in white-collar jobs stuck with one employer for almost the rest of your life. These are guys who will keep on moving. So the other aspect, very important to them, is mobility of savings.
I am Melissa Enoch, and that's it on News Now this Tuesday. The show returns shortly with Grace at the FMDQ Archives Room, giving us our markets round. Stick around.
We are here at Africa Energy Week in 2025. First day of the event is booming everywhere. A lot of people, many stakeholders from the energy value chain.
We're here to promote the need for investments in a robust downstream sector to truly have energy security for the continent.
Welcome back to Money Moves. Let's now go over to Grace for today's market update. Hello there, Grace.
Thank you, Melissa. Let's now take a look at how the markets traded today, starting off with the equities. The NGX All-Share Index gained by 1.20%, while the BRVM declined 1.29% to 349.58. The Nairobi Securities Exchange fell by 0.74% to 180.11. In South Africa, the Johannesburg Stock Exchange slipped 0.64%, while the Zimbabwe Stock Exchange edged down 0.19%. And in North Africa, the EGX 30 also closed lower, down 0.17%. Let's do a quick round on some of the Pan-African currencies. The rand rose 0.06% to 17.08 against the US dollar. The Egyptian pound declined 0.21%, while the CFA franc was marginally higher by 0.01%. The Kenyan shilling rose 0.02% to 129.30. The Moroccan dirham eased 0.06%, while the naira strengthened by 0.12% to 1,446 naira 87 kobo. Let's switch into the commodities data deck, beginning with energy prices. Oil prices fell today, with Brent crude down 0.47% to $62.87, while US WTI also declined by 0.47% to $59.04. Natural gas declined 0.83% to $4.88, while Arabian gasoline dropped 0.95% as of 14:15 GMT. Now, finally, two metals prices. Gold dipped 0.62% to $4,248.10. Copper is 0.34%. Platinum fell 1.70%, while aluminium added 1.08%. And iron ore gained 2% to $106.94 as of 14:17 GMT. And that's our Money Moves markets today. Back to you, Melissa.
Thank you very much, Grace, for those market updates. And that's it on today's edition of Money Moves. From all of us here at the FMDQ studios, we say thank you very much for watching and bye for now.